This is Conversations with a Citizen. I'm your host, Tia Carol Jones. I'm here today with Illinois State Representative LaShawn K. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Tia.
Thank you so much for being here again.
Yeah, you know, I always think of you, my daughter's name, Tia. I told you.
Right. So, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm happy to be a friend of Citizens News, and thank you for having me. I'm born and raised in the city of Chicago. A father to a 17-year-old daughter that's finishing up her senior year in high school with aspirations to be a bison, a Howard Bison.
Oh, yay.
And so I'm on pins and needles waiting for her acceptance from the HU.
Okay.
And I've been elected now for almost 15 years as a member of the General Assembly.
Wow.
And I'm a public servant.
Yes. And thank you for doing that. Can you walk us through the process of creating a congressional map?
You know, there is a process of what you call having public hearings and legislators voting on the outcomes of the public hearings. And I've been a part of voting for two maps. And so it's a collaboration of the public and the General Assembly coming together to do our constitutional duty. We have an obligation to every 10 years to make sure that the maps are constitutional and that they represent people of all ethnicities, all races.
Okay. And after doing two maps, does that work get easier as you do it, or does it get harder?
Well, I mean, I didn't do maps. I voted on the map.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's hard work. It's not easy what I hear going on in that process, because you have to make sure that you really have maps that represent. And so, yeah, it's a process that we're charged with.
Illinois state legislator passed a new congressional map on Friday, October 29th. What has happened regarding the map since then?
Well, that map is still waiting on the governor's signature. And so we're going to see what happens once the governor signs that map. There could possibly be litigation about the map, and we know that there was some battles over the lines. You saw Caston and Newman fighting over the fact that they were placed in the same district, so you had two congressional sitting members having to run against one another. You know, you have districts now drawn where Congressman Kelly now goes even further south. Congressman Bobby Rush has to go further south. So the process of one person, one vote and the Voters' Right Act guarantees that black people, white people all have representation. And so that's why you go out making sure that you find the people, because people move all the time.
Right.
And that's why the maps have to be redrawn, because as you see Chicago is changing all the time. The
Yes.
demographics are changing, and you'll see with the city maps, that's going to be a reflection. And the city maps is a small microcosm of how the congressional and the state maps are put together because of change in demographics.
In 2020, there were various efforts to get people to fill out the census, which comes around every 10 years. How does the census directly affect things like maps and districts and wards?
Yeah, one of the things that we need to recognize in the hard-to-count communities, like Chicago neighborhoods where black people live, I'll just stick with blacks. And, you know, I know that there are some communities where Hispanics live also that just don't trust the process, don't trust the system. They feel that if I fill out this census, I'm going to be called for jury duty, or I don't like giving my information to a stranger. And so because of that, we still have a large demographic that's undercounted, and that's the Black population. And it impacts the resources and the number of representatives that Black people could have in every level of government. It's my belief that if all of the Black people in the city of Chicago, in the state of Illinois, would be counted and trust the system, we would have more representatives of color in Congress, in the state legislature, as well as in city council and other county governments. But the fact that we still struggle with convincing people to trust the process and be counted, you know, we're still undercounted. And it's disappointing because the state spent millions of dollars to boost the count and to convince people to be counted in this census, and we still fell a little short, I think.
Do you think people embrace the messaging or really understood the importance of filling out the census last year?
I think we're doing we're not doing the best job that we can the day of the census and for the next 10 years. So it's great to have this discussion with you, Tia, because we can't just cram for the exam.
Right.
We have to constantly make the census an issue for the next 10 years,
right,
so that people are ready to do it, so that they realize that they should be counted as a whole person. Remember, Black people were only counted as 3/5 of a person. Now we have a chance to really be counted as a whole person, and we don't want to do it. And it's not the individual's fault that refuse to take the census. If you are living in a community where schools are not the best, trash isn't being picked up, you have violence, you have conditions that are subpar to your peers, then you say, well, why do I need to participate in the census? It's not going to do any good for me. And so I think that if we can make sure that government takes care of its people, so that when the time comes for us to ask them to participate in it, then they'll believe in the system. But right now, communities like Austin, Roseland, Inglewood, these communities in the city of Chicago, they're struggling, violence. They don't have the best schools in those areas. And so people say, why would I allow for the government to get more money off of me when it's not coming back to my community? And I think that if we want more people to believe in the system, we have to give them a good reason and build these communities up.
That's a good point. How does something like the law to count incarcerated people at their last known address instead of jail benefit census numbers in certain communities?
Yeah, so you guys have done many stories on that, on prison gerrymandering. So thanks for helping us get that across the finish line. That bill is now law for 2030. So it's going to definitely count people at their last known address and not the prison address, because the Constitution or court says that a prison is not a legal address. And so they've been counted at those addresses, which violates their voters' rights privilege, or I should say voters' right, because it's not so much of a privilege, it's a right that was taken away from them. So the majority of the people in Illinois prisons come from communities like Austin, Inglewood, Roseland, Black communities. And those numbers will now go back to those communities, and it's going to increase Black population in the city. They will automatically be counted and return the dollars to their communities. And that's big because the sad part about people being counted at the prison, you could be in prison for one day and you're going to be counted for the next 10 years.
Wow.
That's not right. And so what's happening, those communities, they continue to receive the federal dollars for the people that were in prison, even though they're not there anymore. And the citizens, they come back to the communities like Austin, Roseland, Inglewood, Gresham, you name it. And what happens? Those communities struggle to provide the necessary support for reentry. And so we need to make sure that those funding resources come back to those communities where the people are actually from, and we need to make sure that we increase the population in those communities so that we can maintain a strong representation for Black people. Because the majority of the people in our prisons in Illinois are Black.
In your opinion, what can be done now so that when the next census comes, people will be more inclined to fill out and be represented?
Yeah, I think that you talk about 10 years from now, that means that you have students at our high schools. It should be a part of civics because the high schoolers, the grammar school, right? So people that's in grammar school right now will probably be responsible for taking the census themselves. And so it should definitely be something that we constantly teach in our schools, and it becomes a part of individuals. There's a major push always for voter registration and voter, what you call knowledge, making sure people understand why it's important to vote. Well, it's important to be counted too. And so we need to have education on the census. And it's not every 10 years that we need to worry about it. We need to worry about it every day. And we should learn from this census where we saw congressional districts, state rep districts, the automatic areas have a decline in Black population. We still will have, according to the maps, the way it looked right now, just because the numbers are declining, it doesn't mean that the Black representatives have to leave those seats, but they become vulnerable. And so people should know that if you didn't count yourself this time, just imagine how much money you left on the table for your communities. And so I think that it has to be a part of our Black people push to remember civically, this is our responsibility, and never ever forget that we were once counted less than whole. And we should look forward to the day when we could be counted as a full citizen in this country and make demands, you know, that our communities are better served.
So the infrastructure bill was passed, and there is money coming to Illinois. Can you talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, Illinois, wow, it's going to be a big deal. Illinois is going to, one, I want to say that we're going to have 17, almost $18 billion coming to Illinois.
Right, with a B. That's a
With a B. So 1.7 billion to improve drinking and wastewater infrastructure throughout Illinois. That's a big deal. The communities where Black and brown people live, we have a problem with service lines going into the house that's laced with lead.
Okay.
That's a problem. We can no longer allow for citizens or people that live in our city or the state to continue to drink water that we know is contaminated.
Right.
And so there's $1.7 billion to improve that. It's not enough. It'll cost $14 billion to replace all the service lines across the state and $5.6 billion in the city. But guess what? If we do that, we'll have healthier communities and we will create a lot of jobs. And that's what we need in our communities right now. We need to heal our communities. We need to create jobs, and that's going to reduce violence. There's going to be $9.8 billion for the federal highway projects, like the 290 Expressway, the Dan Ryan, $1.4 billion would it be for bridge replacements and repairs, about $4 billion to improve public transportation options. 95th, the red line may get some of that funding. Okay. $100 million for broadband. Broadband is a big deal. It's a issue that affects every community.
Right.
It's either too high for people to afford, or they don't have infrastructure to receive it. You have parts in rural Illinois where young people don't have access to the internet. They have to find hotspots in certain communities, and that's hard to believe, but it's true. And then there's approximately $616 million for airports and for airport improvements, the terminals and all that. $5 billion funding pool will also go for ports. And you know, there's $149 million funds to expand the electric charging network. So that's a big deal too, because you're going to have all these electric cars, and people are going to need to have these charging ports. So there's $149 million for that. $27 million to protect against wildfires, and $22 million to protect against cyber attacks. You know, our Attorney General, Kwame, his office got attacked through cyber bullies, or whatever you want to call them. They hijacked his emails, and they stole his emails, and they wanted ransom to give it back. So we have to protect our networks as well. So it's a lot of money, which if we do it right, we could create a lot of jobs, we could heal our communities, and we could come out better. This is probably one of the biggest spending bills that America has seen in decades, and they're not through spending in Washington. There's going to be a $3 trillion bill that they're probably going to be voting on for human capital, making sure that we fund child care and other things like that, and Medicaid and Medicare. So there's a lot going on with the Democrats and President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris.
Before we wrap up, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
You know, I would say that it's important that people recognize that the city of Chicago, the world, has experienced lots of trauma. And we all suffer from some form of trauma. Everybody. We all, no one's, I would say, is exempt from seeing people shot and killed in Hyde Park, or killed on the West Side, or killed by the police. It affects all of us, even if it's not directly happening to us. So I think that people have to recognize that it's not only important that we worry about what we eat and how our physical health is, we must work on our mental health. And it's okay to talk to someone. And I would say that Illinois Department of Public Health has a hotline that if you need someone to talk to, mental health professionals are available to talk for free. All you have to do is text talk to 55-2020. Text talk to 55-2020, and someone will respond. No matter what you're going through, doesn't have to be as traumatic as you think. It could be stress that leads to depression. And this is the holiday time right now, and we know a lot of people have lost people to COVID, lost people to natural causes, lost people to street violence, and they're hurting. And so I would suggest that we pay attention to our mental health. It's going to be important so that we're all healthy.
That's a good point. Thank you.
But before we wrap up, we talked about the money that's coming for the roads and work for bridges and creating jobs. how do we go out and actually, as a political representative, how do you go out and get those people who are actually committing a crime? Given a job is not the answer or the solution to the problem that we're facing, because the people that are committing these crimes aren't interested in working.
You know,
So we bring those jobs, but how do the numbers in crime go down?
you're right. And let me tell you how, you know, you have to be tough on crime, but you have to be smart too. And so if people are carjacking people, if people are shooting people, we have to lock them up. But when we lock them up, there has to be programs to reform them. Our prisons are not places that reform people. People go into our prisons and they come out worse. The system fails them because they paid their time, now they have a felony, and they can't get a job. They become depressed. And so what we have to do is, if the city wants improvements in the crime, we have to make sure that we work with the Department of Corrections. When people go into our prisons, the trades, learn how to be a plumber, learn how to be a carpenter, learn how to be an electrician, so that when you come out, you are trained, skilled, and you have an opportunity to go to work. There's enough work out here for everyone. But the way it is now, people don't want to work because they don't have the skills. I remember when I was a teacher, the students that were deficient in their skills were the troublemakers. It spills right over in our communities. They don't feel adequate, and they have found a way to make a living, and the way they make a living makes all our lives unsafe. And so we got to be tough, and we got to let them know, just like in your families, we love our kids, and if they misbehave, if they break the rules, they get punished. We punish them with tough love. Well, what we see happen in our society, we punish them as if we hate them. And that doesn't make anybody better. And it doesn't make our city, our state, our community safer. It really worsens them. So we got to make sure that if there are young people out here, and there are people out here that right now want to be led to help. They don't mind the tough love. But there are some people that's just cruel. Until they're ready and reformed, they got to stay in jail, because they can't continue to make all our lives unsafe. But they got to have opportunities. And our system now shuts people out of opportunities, and we pay the price for that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tia. Thank you, sis.
Remember to make plans to join us again next week for Conversations with the Citizen, the place where real news